Share.
And share.
And
And the newsletter's gone out, right?
yeah, he scheduled it.
Okay, very good. Hello, everybody. How are you? Good evening. Here we are. Back. And what's going on? It's World Series, right? I can't believe it's Game 7. Of course, if you're not in, the States, you might not know what we're talking about, but it's a very rare sporting event. That is, bye guys, bye. We have like so many employees right now, and it is very busy over here. So we've got a very special guest tonight, obviously. Hopefully you're tuning in to see that and to talk to our winner this year. I don't think we had a video interview with him, and we'll be able to get him, have all your questions. But what's very unique about Henry is that his pen name is H.F. Crum, but we know him as Henry. And Henry is, he just won Slam Dance. So he won Slam Dance, and he also won IFP's lab. Is it the IFP lab? We'll get that straightened out because I know that there's a lab in New York. And there's a lab. All right, Big Legs, take care, buddy. There's a lab in New York and there's a lab in LA. We're gonna find out what that's about. But we also want to find out like how do you win BlueCat? How do you win Slam Dance? I mean, what's going on with the script? All right, Johnny, see ya.
Have a good one.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then we can answer your questions that you want from me. I know you know there's questions you'll have potentially, and just let us know. Obviously, we've got Michelle here as we usually do. She's handling the questions, and then we've got Daryl too. I also I know I've had some requests. I know this is a bit of a show killer. But we do have just a couple of I can't open this is something I ordered off of BlueCat. I thought maybe we could open it up. Ow, that's loud. Is that loud for you guys? Sorry. I'm a big collector and I love weird stuff and I love boring you guys with it, but ooh, this is good. This is a good. I didn't even see. I don't remember ordering anything. I have so many unopened packages. It's frankly, it's weird. Like I feel like who are the famous documentarians that did the Alberts, the Maisley brothers. They need to do a documentary on me, on my buying of stuff off of eBay. I don't know. That's a shout out to Henry. He's our cinephile. But look at this. This is a Batman puzzle, and this puzzle is from 1989. It's not very old. It's only 25 years old, but it's sealed. Look at that. Look at that bad boy. Sealed, okay? Hello? Right? I mean, I don't even know what am I supposed to do with this. I'm supposed to open it? Are you kidding me? Maybe not. I'm probably going to open it because I'm just like, oh, sealed? Basically, if I could buy this, I would buy it and then I'd open it. But I bought it on eBay, so I'm going to open it, Anyways, well, that's my, I know you guys are sort of, most of you are kind of like, why is this happening? But for the small amount of you that sort of, give me a little bit of the Batman love and the puzzle love, that's for you. Well, very good. And did I show you Bruce Lee? I think I might have. Didn't I? Did I get into Bruce?
I think you did last time.
Well, just in case, because this is so awesome. I mean, Bruce Lee. I mean, look at that. The nunchucks, and he moves. It's like a pivotal one. I mean, I got this for my birthday, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a grown man, and basically what I got for my birthday is Bruce Lee comic books and passes to the ArcLight. That's basically it. I did get some nunchucks. I don't know where those went. Where did my nunchucks go, Michelle?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Last time I saw them, they were on the couch.
Yeah, they were over there, but you know, everybody else in this office is so serious, you know, and it's like, so then the nunchucks get put away if I'm not looking for it. And I should be looking at the camera. I'm still like a little off. Okay, so you guys know Michelle. She's our intern. She is here with us this semester. How long are you here through December? When's your class over?
To December.
Okay.
This semester.
And then she can't wait for December, basically,
Yeah.
for it to be over. She's so over it.
30 days now.
Yeah, she's counting the days. I found a little countdown on her laptop. I was like, great. Okay, well, I'm not going to sign the papers for you to get course credit unless your attitude improves.
Alrighty.
Okay, so just let's improve this. Oh, we got some. Look at all the little candy. You know, we're at Olivia's desk. You remember Olivia? She with her hair. She's not here tonight because she had actually went and got her hair done again. But she's got some Laffy Taffy. It's a fun office. It's a crazy office. Okay, so this is what else do we got here? We also want to show you Mike. Mike does our newsletter, and he's been with us for a while. He does a lot of content. There's Mike. Hey, Mike, come on in. Mike's a filmmaker, and I guess you were wondering if there were any other men working at BlueCat, but we actually had a whole bunch of guys just leave. But Mike's been with us since last year, pretty much, and does the newsletter. And so, what kind of feedback do you get from the newsletter from people? I mean, we're always looking for people to like tell us what they want in the newsletter, and he would love to hear any suggestions. So let us know if you have any questions about the newsletter, or even let us know if something you hate, or you want more of. It'd be great right now to tell them. Maybe Michelle can see if there's any. Mike looks like just like my little friend. So, anyways, well, Mike, where are you from, Mike?
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, and you're a filmmaker.
I am. I make shorts and I write movies and yeah.
You're working on that. You just finished a short or a feature.
I just finished writing a feature, actually. First draft. It's a really crappy. It's like a bleh.
Bang out draft, vomit draft, as they say.
Vomit.
Okay, and you, and so you're from Cleveland, and what kind of tell them about the work you do, the shorts.
I do comedy stuff mainly. I do little comedy shorts. I film, and I'm gearing up to try to hopefully make some new, bit larger scale shorts soon.
Right.
And
I mean, you shoot them. Where do you shoot them? Well, what's your production process?
Our production process is we have $0, the $0 budget. So that means no one is fed or paid.
No one's fed.
No one's fed. I maybe buy
pizza.
But like a DiGiorno's. You get
frozen.
Yeah, we get it frozen.
You don't even go to Domino's.
Yeah.
That's an interesting angle. I always think, I gotta get pizza. Mm-hmm. You gotta order it, but instead
I get the DiGiorno's.
Just go to Ralph's and hit the frozen.
Even better, pizza rolls. They're cheaper. Everyone in the crew. Everyone in the crew gets one pizza roll.
Oh.
And it's a 13-hour day, so it's good.
Wow.
And the people are
so
at the end of it, people are really mad.
So they get the pizza. They are right.
Really mad because the DP gets one pizza roll, the PA gets one.
Where do they see your work?
You go on Totino'sPizzaRolls.com.
No, come on. You don't want people to go.
Sure.
YouTube.
YouTube and Vimeo. And,
okay.
And I have a Tumblr is where I put most of my stuff.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's robinsonmike.tumblr.com.
Okay, there you go. Easy peasy. So if you want to see any of Mike writes the newsletter. He helps us with some of the videos that we do, and some of the self-help stuff. And he's worked all angles of BlueCat, but right now we try and use him for writing content. But he's been writing a lot of the newsletters recently. And Mike's very helpful because he's a filmmaker. He has a very much of the I think of the vantage point. He shares the vantage point that most of you guys share, which is, you're trying to make movies, you're trying to write compelling stories, and trying to create work for an audience, and and that's where your passion lies. So we try to have, as much as we can, people that work for BlueCat that are also that share the same passion and point of view as our entrants and our writers too. And pretty much everybody in their office are. I don't know what's going on out there, yeah, the Emily, everyone basically is a film, loves film, so filmmaking and storytelling and story development. So everybody's into that. So, well, very good. Mike's going to be helping you, Michelle, with the questions. And like I said, is there any questions for us for Mike at all? Or
No, they just recommended something about pitching to local pizza shops and marketing for food.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he's thinking. All right. Well, you got some help there from the filmmakers out there. Yeah, you know that's the thing is that if he goes and he asks for free pizza from a local Italian place, they'd probably give him a whole meal, and then his movies would be better. That's you know, a little light bulb moment for me. And well, very good. So all right, folks. So why don't we? Do we have any questions at all for Mike or anything like that before we move on? Okay. Well, look, we're all here because we want to talk to our winner. This is a very, very special opportunity for everybody and everybody that's watching. Awesome, because this is the person you want to talk to. This is a guy that won BlueCat. This is a guy that submitted his script to BlueCat, and it found its way through the pile and to us, and it was, you know, like there really wasn't any debate at the end. We knew that this was the winner, and the other finalists were not really threatening the script. The script was called Three Faces of Hunger and Thirst. What a bad title. No, I mean, wait a minute, hold on. He's the winner. It's a great title. No, we'll talk about the script. We'll talk about what it's about. And I want to talk about why it won. Not just, oh, it's so good, the story, yeah. But what are the things that he did technically in the script? What are the things that he did with his screenwriting that helped the script too and really made it different for us? So, all right, so we're going to bring in, Michelle's going to slide back towards the eBay pile back there so we can still see her. And there's Henry. Henry comes in.
Greetings.
Henry, welcome. Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, there's the BlueCat. Oh, wait, you come on a little.
Come closer?
Come in a little closer.
Get cozy.
And Michelle, why don't you get back so we can still see you? Yeah, I love seeing Michelle buy the packages.
We're juggling.
And then, okay, well, very good. So, welcome, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I know that you were a little hesitant because you're shy. We had to convince you. Seriously, you're a modest guy, and we had to convince you to come on. And but I'm so glad that you did because, and I said to you, I said, man, it'd be awesome if we could have you on because a lot of people would want to talk to you and be like, they want to know what happens because they're all aspiring. We're all working, and you know, it's nice to pick somebody else's brain that's had an experience that we haven't had, you know, and it's like, you know, to be able to be like, okay, whatever. So your script is called The Three Faces of Hunger and Thirst, and it won BlueCat this year, and we did a table reading.
Which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. Hearing it out. Yeah, spoken out loud.
John Ortiz, Sal Lopez.
Yeah.
And another guy from Dexter. What was his name? You remember?
Olazabal was his last name. I'm trying to remember, but he was fantastic.
Yeah. We had a really terrific reading, and very helpful. And then you sort of did like maybe a pass, and then you sit into slam dance, or no?
I did. I'm trying to remember. I think the biggest notes that went into the Slime Dance draft were actually the first round feedback that I got for the script back in December.
From BlueCat.
Yeah, from BlueCat. You guys were the first people that I actually sent it to or I had any reaction to it at all.
Right.
And there was some really great nuggets, which I'm sure, you know, you read so much and you probably give so many notes, or whoever it was that got it, that it's probably hard to keep track of it. But because of that, it definitely helped me push it over the edge, I think, and made it, the script that it was. And then I was, like everything else, it's like, that phrase, creative endeavors are never finished, they're just abandoned. So I think, like, I can't remember exactly which one, but the first round notes that I got from you guys were certainly incorporated in the draft that I sent to Slamdance, as well as the Film Independence Screenwriting Lab, which I also did.
Right. Now that's in LA.
That's in LA.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. So let's just go back and tell us about. So where did you go to college? What happened with that?
Where did I go to college? Boy, that's a really good question. I went to college at a lot of different places. I started at Tulane for like 3 weeks, and then I realized I didn't want to go to college, and I came home and my parents said, "You have to go to college." I said, "I'm not going to go to college," and they said, "Well, then you can't sleep here." So then I took correspondence classes at community college, and then I went to community college. This is all in Chicago. And then after I finished with that, then I went to a place called Loyola in Chicago, and then I sort of finished there. And then when I finished school, I was like, there's two things I really like. I really like wine. I really like movies. So I found the
wine.
Wine, yeah. So
okay. I didn't realize. Did you win any drinking contests this year?
I didn't.
But any alcohol competition?
There was not. I can't get invitations to those. They don't even call me anymore.
Right.
Yeah, because I just drink them straight out.
Yeah, because you basically lose.
That's it. That's it.
Which is.
But you kind of win because you get to drink anyway.
In a way, it's winning. Yeah. Okay. So you wanted your wine and movies. So then what?
So I found a bottle of wine that I really liked, and I wrote a bunch of passion letters to the winery, and I said I'd really like to come work at your winery. And
oh shit!
And so so literally. So then I went. This is probably my. I only went to college proper for about 2.5 years. So I just loaded up on credits, and then I had 3 classes before my senior year, and so I just took those summer and semester off, and I went and worked at a winery in Napa Valley.
Wow.
And basically
from Chicago.
Just packed up my car and then found like a room to rent in this woman's basement.
Wow.
And so so I just worked as an intern, during a crush season at a winery, but I also knew that I wanted to apply to film school, so I took that time and because I didn't know anything about movies except that I loved them. And I was like a film reviewer in Chicago, so I got to write.
You were already writing reviews.
So I was already writing reviews, and it was a really exciting time because
what are some of the French, those guys were all.
Oh yeah, I mean Balzan or Truffaut or any of the Coyotes de Cinema guys. Yeah, there were a lot of those guys.
Godard was also.
Godard, absolutely.
They all were film reviewers before they started making films.
Oh yeah, and there's still like a couple of great, more recent guys. The name escapes me, with the guy who did. The remake of Straw Dogs. I think he was a critic for a while.
Right.
I think he's from. I think he's Israeli, but I can't remember.
Okay.
Great director, and he's done a lot of other good movies that completely skip my mind. But also, Brotherhood of the Wolf is a French guy whose name I cannot remember as well. But he was also of course, when you're in college and you're writing all these things, the most exciting thing was they had a large enough circulation for our college newspaper because it was for the neighborhood. That there was only a couple of screening rooms in Chicago, so there were 4 movies that I got to actually review with Siskel and Ebert. So it was 7 guys in a room. And I say that's awful. They actually were all guys. Now that I think about it, luckily that's changing. But that sort of dates me. I was an old guy, but but it was
you screened a couple movies with Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah, and
what a treat.
Ebert was not. I never got to talk to him, but Siskel was this really nice guy. He started as a sports writer. And, of course, these kids in college writing about movies, you're how do you get to write about movies and get paid for it?
Right.
And he was just really inspiring guy. And just super nice. I mean, both of their passing is, a real loss for film.
Right.
But anyway, so that was the only real film experience I had. I was a photographer, kind of shooting stuff for buddies who did weddings. I would shoot second stuff. But this was all in the film days. I took some classes at the Art Institute in Chicago. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I'd written some plays. I wrote. I was studying at Second City, just sort of as an actor more though. At that time, I didn't realize I was a bad actor yet. And. So that kind of all culminated into me realizing that everything I loved was film or wine. So then I went to do this wine thing. And
do you have? Let us know if there's any questions that come in about what he's talking about.
This is why I hate interviews. I'm so rambling. You keep me on target. I'm so
No,
bad.
this is fantastic.
Someone said Paul Schrader was a critic.
Yeah, Paul Schrader. Good job.
Paul Schrader.
That was like,
Paul Schrader.
That's good.
You know, let's shut the door because it's a little crazy.
But I mean, I think there's something to be
bear
said.
with us, yeah.
I mean, everybody loves to watch movies.
So, yeah, Michelle, definitely let us know when there's somebody sort of has a question about what he's getting into, because I thought maybe there would be some.
Yeah, there's a few.
Okay, well,
So-
what is he? Anything that's about right now, like about film school or anything?
Yeah, they wanted to know how do you outline.
Okay, we'll get into that later.
Okay.
Yes, let's save those. But if there's anything that comes up that's sort of pertinent to what he's talking about right now, because we're going to get down the story. So, why did film? You went to Napa, then what?
So went to Apple, filled out. I only knew NYU, UCLA, and USC, and so.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got into how many?
I only got into USC.
Nice.
So I mean, I think I made some rounds and interviews and stuff, but I didn't get into the other two. So I chose USC because they chose me.
Trojan.
Yeah, and but it was amazing. I mean, I again, like, nobody in my family had ever done anything. I mean, like, really creative person. I mean, all very creative people, but nobody had ever attempted a career at it. So,
yeah, there you go.
And so so I started at USC and just jumped into it. And
how was school? I mean, do you look back on it like some people look back on film school and they're like, I didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah, except for a bunch of debt.
Yeah, or what did you think?
What
did you learn there that you feel like you probably wouldn't have gotten it if you had never gone?
Because I was like a commuter student working full time during college, I didn't really have much of like a college experience that way. And so when I got to film school, it was like the first time I was sort of in a highly selective group of, students, and they were all from jaw-dropping schools and had, amazing credentials. And yet, surprisingly, everyone was like really open and really nice and, very creative. So I think what I got at film school, ironically, was less what the institution had to offer, I mean, in general, and more just from the student body, that there was just a lot of really talented people. So you're making movies and you're watching other people make movies, and their movies are better or worse, and you're learning from their mistakes and from their successes. And so it becomes this, very kind of codependent origination where you're all kind of finding your voices and learning from each other. So I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool to have a community, and you all got, it's like you got homework together, and you've got to crush it, and then there's the natural competition of I don't want to look embarrassed, show up with nothing or whatever. So well, good. So then, how did school play out? I mean, you had some good things happen to you at USC.
Yeah, I got really lucky. A bunch of my friends. I was the first person.
The one thing you'll start to notice about Henry is he'll say, "I got really lucky." I don't know how it happened. He's very modest. But we don't know if it's fake modesty, by the way. That might be something that we'll discuss with all of you. So maybe you can be trying to sort him out a little bit. But yeah, he's always like, "Oh, I was so lucky. I won all these competitions." So, anyways, go ahead. So you got really lucky at USC.
Well, you did some time at USC. You know USC really well. I mean, you probably know better than I do. I mean,
Well, I was a teacher there, but I never would have been accepted. I mean, that's
because it's easier to get accepted than be as a teacher. No, I think it's a lot harder to be hired as a teacher.
I don't. I think it's harder to be hired as a teacher. I just didn't have the experience. I'm not trying to be cheeky. I'm just saying I was never a student there, and that's hard enough on its own. But you distinguish yourself there.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to like a thesis project. You sort of pitch, and then if you get selected, you do a thesis.
Now,
project.
is this you were a graduate? Or?
So this is for grad school. So this was
you're in grad school, and for production.
For production.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say the one thing.
What are the departments they have there? Production, screenwriting, producing,
and now
critical
studies, animation now.
I
say now for a long time, but and then they also have interactive. Did I already say that?
No.
Which is sort of like game design and
the game stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, it's an amazing. I mean, if you're ever out in LA and you just you want to swing by and see how big this place is, it's like the actual film school is but it was the first film school in the country, and it was founded in 1920.
Douglas Fairbanks.
Douglas Fairbanks.
And
Is Chaplin gave some money?
No,
Probably?
it's Mary Pickford.
Yeah, it was Chaplin. Weren't they all with United Artists?
They were all the artists that finally decided to sort of take the means of production and make their own.
Try and make their own little deal. But Fairbanks and Mary Pickford were the ones that put the stake in the ground.
Yeah.
1920, first film. 1920.
It's crazy.
They're like, let's have a school. I mean, it's like nuts, and so yeah, so there's something to be said for the
I do have to say the one thing though, like as much as I really liked it, and it turned out like I realized I loved being a student there. I will say to everybody, I mean, and this is just nothing against USC. Like, you really don't have to go to film school. That's the great thing about film.
I think we know that. I think everybody sort of understands that. But I always like to paint both sides of it.
Yeah.
And say, like, it's good. It's sort of like the answer is it, should I go to film school or not? The answer is yes, no. You know what I mean? It's like there's
whichever works for you.
Yeah, it's like both of them can work, but because everybody... so anyway, you did your thesis at USC.
Yes. I did my thesis at USC, and a producer named Roger Corman at the time had. I'm jumping ahead. Basically, he came to USC and said, send us, like from your. I mean, this is what I was told from the class. Send us, your.
Who's Roger Corman?
So Roger Corman is a producer who is really famous more for people that he sort of like discovered and kind of got working. But he was also an amazing director, in my personal opinion, in his own right. He did a lot of sort of the real first nitty-gritty independent filmmaking. And like, I mean, he kind of made the business model that, made something like Miramax possible in the 90s. And, today makes something like, Sundance what it is. I mean, he was sort of the genesis of a lot of what is sort of the independent-minded thinking filmmaker. And but he's also sort of famous for making B movies. I mean, they call him the king of the B movies. And so, like, a lot of filmmakers get their start with him. And it's mostly just because he has like a breakneck pace that he makes movies, and at the lowest possible budgets. And one of the people that made their first movie was this guy named Ron Howard, and he had this great line that is like, look, he's like, you make your first movie for Roger, and if it's any good, you never have to work for him again.
Right.
So that's and it's
who are some of the directors that have worked with Roger Corman?
I mean the
Ron Howard.
Francis Ford Coppola did his first movie for him. Scorsese kind of did his second movie for him. James Cameron did his first feature film for him. Curtis Hanson. I'm gonna start forgetting. Jonathan Demme obviously is amazing. Still.
Right.
He did a bunch of movies for Roger.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really big directors that have worked with Roger Corman. If you don't know who he is, I know a lot of people are familiar with him, but he's worth doing a Wikipedia on him and reading about that guy, because he is like a figure in world cinema that is.
He's the first book on movie I ever read. Was his, like, How I Made 100 Movies and Never Lost a Dime.
Yeah. I mean, he really is a very truly influential, substantial figure in world cinema, and just his influence and the impact he's made. So. Anyway, so you made your thesis, and then Roger Corman...
He saw it, and so a couple of us...
Okay, so he saw your thesis.
So he saw my thesis, and then three of us from my class, I think it was, went over and we interviewed with him. The other two guys I thought were much more talented than me, so when I got into the interview, I was pretty sure there's no way I'm going to get this job. So I just started asking him questions about movies that he had made as a director that I was really a big fan of. And he had this sort of, like, he has this, I don't even know what you call it, this like immersive intensity about any idea. And so one of the movies he made for United Artists was this thing called Von Richthofen and Brown. And I had read, not in a book, but some random article, I think it was like in, I don't even know where it was, maybe in the Parish Review, someone talking about like researching, the Red Baron, and like, oh yeah, Roger Corman did this movie, and he learned how to fly a plane because the aerial photographers were costing too much. So like literally that's what this guy did. It was like he literally learned how to fly a biplane, put a camera in there, and flew it around and shot it himself. Like, that was the kind of, like, can-do spirit that for, a kid, didn't come from a whole lot of cash and wanted to make movies, was like, oh, that's what you do. You figure out how to do it, and you just go do it. And so that was one of those things. So I just started asking him about, his different production strategies and the movies of his that I had seen. And, this was sort of really before, it was definitely before streaming on the internet, and it was really a lot of those titles that he had directed were hard to find. So like a place that I used to go to a lot when I was living in Chicago was this place called Facets Multimedia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Facets is amazing.
Thornton.
Yeah, look at you. See,
Yeah.
Gordy knows everything. So you guys should all know this. If you have any questions, this is the guy you
I was a cab driver in Chicago. That's why I know it's on
You
Thornton.
were a cab driver in Chicago?
Yeah. I don't know anything about film. I don't know anything.
When were you a cab driver in Chicago?
Like a long time ago, but this isn't a Ustream about Gordo. Okay,
It should be.
Well, they're always sort of.
Dude, do you know how many
about.
like amazing people? Like, there's like one of the greatest like American thinkers. This guy named Giordano, who's like this philosopher of mind, who's now like the head of like neuroweaponization for in Bethesda, Maryland. But he's like this. So look him up if you guys want like mind blowing stuff about the things they're doing with nanotechnology and neurology. But like he has this great story of being a cab driver and saying like it was the greatest way for him to actually break through on ideas because he had to like think about how to get people places, and then he was like working on this like heavy, things on ontology and like epistemology.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what I was thinking about, but
Sorry, so
anyway,
Roger Corman.
Yeah.
So I go in, I have this interview. I'm pretty sure I don't get the job. It comes to the end. He shows me a clip, which is the beginning of a movie that he had just shot, and he's like, "Look, we have 2 openings right now. Like one of them is this movie needs to be recut. This whole feature needs to be recut to hit a distribution deadline. Do you think you can get it done? Do you think you would be able to recut that in like 6 weeks?" And at this point, the longest thing I had ever edited at school was like a documentary that was about 30 minutes. And so, but I was like, of course, I had read enough about Roger that everyone said, whatever he asks you to do, you tell me you absolutely can do it, and then go run and get the manual, and then sit in a closet until you figure it out. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. And he's like, well, how would you fix this? And there was like, it was a horror movie about wolfhounds and like people turning into wolfhounds. And I mean, if it sounds silly, it is kind of silly, but I learned a lot. I mean, and specifically from him, it was just like he thinks in edits and cuts. And I remember reading somewhere that people like Walter Murch can see about 12 to 14 cuts into a scene, so he can watch the dailies and he can figure out where the master shot goes, where the 2 shot and over the shoulders. And I proceeded to like watch Roger explain to me the footage that was available beyond the cut that I was seeing, and I could see that he could see into the cuts 20 and 30 times, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm sitting there. It was like a beautiful mind moment where you're like, this is who I'm sitting next to. And he's like, but this stuff doesn't work. And it was this, because they didn't have any money, this is all shot on film, they shot it like 6 frames a second in the middle of a forest in the middle of Ireland, and it was just like kind of a mess. And I had seen this really, like, I think it might be my favorite movie, depending on the days. There's this one Carl White movie called Happy Together, which is a great movie if anybody gets a chance. It's a gut-wrenching love story.
Happy Together?
Happy Together.
The classic.
Amazing. And there's like the step printing that they do in that movie where they shoot these street scenes in Taipei and at like a low frame rate, and then they step print them out. And so I was like, oh, well, we could step print that. And he's like, what do you mean? And then I sort of like drew him a picture of how I thought you could use the shots. And he's like, okay, that's interesting. And then that was the end of the interview. And I was like, yeah, I screwed it up. That's fine. So like at this point, I'm still like a full-time student at school, and to make money on the side, I was working as a key grip and as a cameraman and a camera assistant, and, all these different things. And then I got the call from Roger. He's like, can you start tomorrow? So then I proceeded to like that last semester of school. Like I had 2 classes in the morning, and this is so boring. You guys are falling asleep.
Go ahead.
Anyways, and then I would work.
Insightful.
It's insightful? Oh, well, that's generous.
Yeah, keep going.
So basically, that's what I did. Like, it got a little dicey at one point just because there was so much work to do. So I would go to school, and then I would start at about like 2 in the afternoon, and then I would work until 10 the next morning, and then I would go to 9:30. So people would be coming in, and people started realizing that I was wearing the same clothes from the day before. So then Roger's assistant went into him, and they're like, we think Henry might be homeless. Do you think, and like Roger, of course, like, he doesn't pay very much, but he pays a living wage. And so he, like, I remember at one point, like, during this mania of trying to get this movie, in shape for the distributors, and he put me aside and he's like, now, Henry, are you living out of your car? Because if you are, I'm sure we can find other arrangements. And I said, no, I just have to work through the night because I'm doing these other things. And he was just like, he has this very avuncular capacity to be like generous at the exact right moments that you need it. So flash forward, I took that job, I finished it. The thesis film that I had shot, I didn't have the money to do the print because again, this is back in the days of film. And like he actually really generously like wrote a check to Photocam, and like I literally have like I was able to graduate from USC thanks to his generosity.
Oh
So,
wow, that's a cool story.
So, yeah. So anyway, so after I graduated, I basically went to work for him, and it was a lot of the same. Like, so I would re-edit these movies that weren't working, and then he would usually give me a camera in 2 days, and then I would write like 40 pages, and then like go shoot that, and then recut that footage to sort of fill out the movie to his satisfaction. And
Wow.
And then I got to direct.
So you were writing.
Yeah.
Like extra, you were like rewriting, you were writing additional like reshoot pages.
Exactly. And it was weird though because it would be like, you know, is it writing to say, okay, I need an insert of someone grabbing an axe instead of a sword, or you know, or something like that, or you know, so like in that sense, yes, I mean I was writing pages, but they weren't, you know, by any means something I was inspired.
Like an action list or something of like. Or a shot list of
yeah,
like a glorified shot list.
But then there would be like dialogue scenes. Like this story doesn't make sense, so it's like you have to have you know Roger
reshoot pages.
Yeah, exactly. Reshoot pages. Yeah, that's you know. I guess if I had like real training like Gordy, I would know that that's what they're called.
No, I don't know what that is. I mean
that seriously.
I'm just guessing, right? It sounds like he's got to write some pages, but that's like great. What a great experience because you're looking at something and you're like, story's broken.
Yeah.
And now I gotta fix the story.
And they already shot it, which is always so it's like you're note carding scenes that exist.
And you really can't like sit at Starbucks for 3 weeks trying to figure this out.
No, you're like no, because so the average. I mean, like I you know I directed a couple of movies for Roger, and the average you know shooting for the feature was about 12 days.
12 days.
And that was, and again, when you're shooting film,
12 shooting days.
Yeah, 12 shooting.
So that's like 2 6-day weeks.
Exactly. That's usually, but he didn't believe in pickups, so you would shoot all the stuff on film. There'd be no dailies, so you would like shoot it and then like send it to the lab. And like there was one movie I did that we had 18,000 feet of 16 to shoot the film, and then the lab lost 6,000 feet. So we're shooting a lot of 2-camera stuff, so it would be like I would have a close up from one scene and nothing else. And so Roger doesn't really believe in pickups or reshoots unless they're absolutely necessary. So he'd be like, figure it out. So like that was so you really get this like hard and fast education of what is the bare minimum that needs to tell the story.
Wow.
Which you know is like a great aesthetic commitment. I mean, you know, film is always better when.
Well, how does that translate into screenwriting?
So that's what's really interesting. Basically, when I came through the other side of like the Corman finishing school, you know, I realized
just that particular point because I think that's something that people don't really understand or embrace. Is that. Story is king, and you only have so much time in a script, and you really need to make your strongest and best choice and move it on, you know, and tell the story and keep it on this, and have that economy of just have a real eye on the volume of your expression, meaning that you don't need to keep going on or go this way or that way. If you always keep it on that really like that's when the script is tight or whatever. It's because So you can see that in your own script that you won with is that sort of Corman budget, you know, like or influence of like.
Yeah, I hope that's the influence and not you know not schlockiness.
Yeah, not the quality is there, but that sense of like cinema can function as narratively.
Very simple.
Very easily with just tell the story, just give it to us. And a lot of people get caught up in how they actually write the script instead of realizing that a screenplay is an expression of story.
Yeah,
you know, and that's really what
you don't want to
miss
like, the actual thing, which is the story, for the things that make
it's
it.
Not literature. It's not. We're not supposed to be aware of you, the writer. I mean, sometimes it'll come up, but generally we want to be immersed. Yeah. So you made how many films for Corman?
Oh, I don't even. I mean, that I worked on.
Yeah,
that I directed from start to finish. I only did 2 features for him that I started.
But you were fixing. How long did you work for him?
Oh, I mean, basically until about 2006, I think.
So how many years was that?
Like 4 years, probably.
Wow.
And I still.
So what was it like when you were? I mean, did you? Where were you at the end of those 4 years? What were you like thinking? Like, okay, this is what do I want to do? What's my next move? What were you thinking about?
I mean, what I was really realizing was that if I wanted to do something that I felt good about that got me really excited, like I needed a story that I could sink my teeth into. And looking back at USC, everything was so geared towards being a director that the irony was the only part of the real filmmaking procedure that I'd been a part of before film school was writing, but I had just sort of not been able to spend the time, and that's what I learned. Like you really, whether it's a 10,000 hour kind of, Malcolm Gladwell rule or whatever it is, like you really need to be sitting in a box sweating that out to figure out how to do it. And I just hadn't done that hard work. And so it was like I'd kind of been able to jump ahead.
Hard work for what?
To learn how to tell a good story.
Okay.
To write. Really, really write a great screenplay. And
what's this Malcolm Gladwell thing?
I mean, that was just, I'm trying to remember, it was like Outliers or something. Was that, do you guys know the book I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and his whole theory is that you need like 10,000 hours of doing a thing before you become good at it or great at it.
Oh, okay.
And it was like this thing where I just, I mean, and I don't know if that was the case.
So I'm good at reading a comic book.
That's the best.
Yeah, I just want to point
and deciphering it with the mythos.
I'm good at that. Very good. Well, that's good. So you realized you had to crack a script. Now, what were you professionally? What were you doing after Corman while you were sort of chasing this 10,000 hour thing with the writing?
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly right. What it was is I literally had that that come to Jesus moment where it was like, all right, I've got to sit there with a notepad and say, if this is what I really want to do, I'm still gonna have to keep the lights on. And I went through every possible skill that I could do and how much it paid and how much it took away from learning how to be a writer. And so basically I realized I could edit. And so that was something that I kind of just like tabled, these kind of low budget films as a director and basically started back into as an editor and did infomercials.
Where did you edit and how was that? And you're in LA.
I'm in LA.
It's 2006, 2007.
Yes.
You're done with Corman.
Yeah.
And now you're editing.
Yeah, and it's so weird. Like the world was different enough then that like I had a lot of Avid experience, so I knew how to online edit, in the tape days. So that I would take, an online editing job for a weekend. I mean, the only rule was I won't take a full-time position. So I wanted project work so that I could take chunks and focus on trying to figure out how to write. And so that would be kind of like, that was the metric. Like, there was, the only real job that I considered really going full-time for was like some trailer editing. And I never even got to like edit any big trailers. I was just sort of assistant editing because it's like a whole other apprentice thing.
In terms of like, a lot of people out there, they're not editors.
Yeah.
They don't live in LA. But I just want to, my observation is you lived in LA, you were an editor, you're in the industry, in show business, I guess.
But it's hard when you're in the peripheries, right?
But my point is that it didn't really matter because at the end of the day, you were creating space so you could write.
That's it.
And so you could have been in Oklahoma City selling real estate or whatever, or or servicing pools or something in Tulsa, and you were just literally doing it as a means to an end.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important for everybody to notice that, I don't want people to get lost in like, well, Henry's this and this and this. Yes, obviously Henry's experiences along the way working in film influenced how he can write, but that's also something that most of it seems like is just out of your own love of film and the fact that you were watching the films and everything all along the way. But anyway, so I just wanted to sidetrack a little bit with that. But
I think that's actually really true because I mean, and kind of thinking about the BlueCat script, I mean, the irony of all of this is like, I had a day job that was sort of, maybe in the outer rungs and circles of what other people were doing, but most of the work was like industrials and things like that.
Like what? What do you mean industrials?
Like working for like a medical device company, doing their kind of videos, those kinds of things like that.
Right.
And just editing and stuff together. I mean, and people were wonderful. I mean, it's great work. I mean,
But you weren't editing for like Game of Thrones or anything like that.
No, I wasn't. No, I didn't have like
that most people never even see.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're just grinding away. You're using your skills.
And and watching movies, reading books, reading a lot. I mean, I'm a big believer in apprentice at what you want to do. If you want to write,
what do you mean? You're a big believer in what?
If you want to write, you got to be a big reader.
Oh, you got to read.
Yeah, you got.
So now, what do you like? Okay, but do you read scripts or do you read books or what are you talking about?
I mean, for me, I got non-paid reading jobs for script coverage companies.
Oh, you're reading scripts.
Yeah, reading scripts, and then when you do enough coverage, you would basically, they start paying you to do it, and then you take less, editing jobs. So you're always sort of juggling lots of different jobs.
How long, who are you reading for?
The people that I read for the most, and still do at different times, is Script Pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're, again, wonderful group of people. They really are really pro writer. Just like
BlueCat. So you're reading amateur. You're reading people that are trying.
I'm reading people that are writing like I'm writing,
right.
Which is like on nights and weekends when nobody's looking, get as much as I can out of it.
Right. Okay. So
and then,
most people listening.
Yeah.
People that are trying to. Okay. So you're a reader and you're an editor and then you're cut and you're so this script how many screenplays? Tell us your sort of.
The
screenwriter. As a screenwriter, Three Faces of Hunger and First. What were the scripts that led you? Three Faces of Hunger and First was the winning script. Now, what was that? People are going to want to know how many did you write before that, or what?
I've been writing scripts. I think like a lot of people since college. And so I don't know honestly how many I've finished.
Cool.
In terms of things that I've actually showed people, that's probably a much smaller number. I think that's what you have to do. You just have to keep writing, and it doesn't matter whether other people like it or they think it's good or it's bad. But that's just my personal. I'm as new to this as everybody else. I don't know. What the formula was. If there was, I would have done it. Okay.
Well, either way, obviously you've done some work. It's like you don't know anything. You just want BlueCat. Okay. Yeah. It's like Okay. So it's very good. So all right. Now take us like a year and a half back.
Mm-hmm.
Where's this? Okay. So the name of the script, I've said it a million times. Three Faces of Hunger and First. Tell us about your journey with this script. This is the one that sort of...
Yeah, so this script was... I did a short film that I wrote and directed about 2 years ago, and it was about narco bloggers, which I encourage anybody that's out there that's curious about it. These are people that write anonymous news stories in Mexico, and specifically this was at sort of the height of a lot of the drug violence, of which is still going on there. And it's just about this sort of kind of community reporting on blogs. And, it's terrifying the things that these people are getting either by themselves with their phone or sent to them over their phone of, things that are happening in Mexico. The reason I've always been really, enchanted with and fascinated by and in love with Mexico was I'm originally from a border town in Texas called El Paso. I grew up in a kind of bilingual community and went to a school where it was sort of Spanish and English, and it's just been one of those things that's always been really fascinating to me. But it was there's as we just said, I was doing all these film things that didn't really have anything to do with Mexico, but it was one of these places I've always been fascinated by Mexican authors, and I'd always read a lot of Octavio Paz, and just billions of people. I won't even get into
right,
but fascinated by that, and never had really found a way to kind of get at my passion for this thing that had sort of nothing to really do with film or stories.
Right.
And I did this short film, and
so you did a short film on
narco bloggers.
Okay.
And so
what was that called?
It's called Guaritos.
Okay, and that is online?
It's you can see the trailer online. We got a distributor for it. I don't know if and when it'll ever get out in the world.
You're still sort of okay.
Yeah, so
because that's the first thing they're going to want to ask. So there's a trailer. We'll give you the information at the end. Maybe Michelle will type it on. We'll get it so you can at least look at the trailer and see what he's got. So you made this short on narco bloggers. Just quickly tell them a little bit about shooting that. So you were in El Paso, and that's right across the river from Juarez.
Exactly.
And Juarez is where all that horrific, catastrophic violence is going on.
Yeah.
And so you shot. Did you shoot over in Mexico?
We did shoot in Mexico. We did not get to shoot in Juarez, just because of sort of safety concerns, and also just I couldn't get anybody
didn't you get chased? Oh, you couldn't get anybody to go.
Yeah, we couldn't get anybody to go. So
just practice on me. Ask me.
Yeah, you want to go shoot more?
No,
but it's gonna be totally safe. I got a buddy. He's gonna have a baseball bat. We're just gonna have one camera. Really quick. We're gonna wake up like
Nope.
4 or 5. We're just gonna go underneath
Not
the
going
bridge.
there.
No one's gonna
Not
know.
going. Stay here.
No, come on, Gordy.
No.
You love it.
Nope.
You
Let's go
love
get
it,
some
Gordy. You
donuts
love
in
it.
America. Okay. All right. Very good. So yeah, that must have been difficult. But you did shoot a little bit over there. You made the short.
Yes.
And then what happened?
We didn't
after you
shoot in
made it?
Juarez. We shot in Mexico.
You shot.
Yeah, we shot in Mexico.
But then what happened then? How did you get the script?
So
the feature script.
So we did this.
Do you want a water?
Sure, I'd love one if you have one. But
This one's pretty big.
wow, it's fancy stuff.
Just get a little water going, everybody. You know.
Keep it hydrated. So we did this movie. I realized I wanted. We shot it in Spanish. You know, it took place there. It was sort of about this thing that I felt was very personal to me. I didn't know if other people would. I mean, I know other people find it horrific. I didn't know if people would see the dignity of what it is that these people are doing and what they're actually fighting for. Mm-hmm. And so I made this movie. We got, again, and this is genuinely lucky because film festivals are very difficult. We got into a lot of film festivals that were very helpful in promoting it within film festivals. We got to go. We premiered in Cartagena at the which is like, of all the places, a movie that's about drug violence to be, to get to screen in Colombia was just like, I mean, that's just like a dream come true.
Right.
And I mean, because they know the iron price of that whole world.
Right.
Anyways, so then we kind of went to a lot of other festivals, and I was sitting there thinking about other things that about Mexico, and specifically thinking like, is there a script that I can do that's set in the world of the drug cartels and what's kind of going on? And then in my mind, I was going back to an experience that when I was at school, I did a summer abroad in Mexico City, and I went to the school, and I had a professor who was part of a Mexican presidential campaign for a candidate named Luis Donaldo Colosio. And he had, this just amazing sort of zeal for life, this professor that I had, and just this like very poetic sense of commitment to democracy in Mexico and what that exactly meant, and how this particular candidate had represented, the best aspirations and the best efforts of people to really bring kind of like what we would call sort of representative democracy, a real election to Mexico before anyone else. And unfortunately, he was assassinated. And so as I was kind of thinking about this script that would kind of be similar to the short film I did, I was like also sort of tugging at like this other chance of sort of in Mexican history that I felt was sort of like ironically and sort of roundabout kind of connected to this. The modern day situation that's happening with drug violence in Mexico and corruption. And so I kind of went back to this thing that happened to me, this person that I knew and this person that I read up on, this candidate. And it's just amazing, like when you go on the internet and you read all the stories, I mean, like you can look at the Washington Post story and the New York Times story and they don't line up at all. I mean, to the point where like people...
So there was this assassination in Tijuana of this Mexican presidential candidate who was trying to speak out against sort of this system that had been in place forever, where they basically just sort of handed off the power to the next family, and it was all sort of chummy and everything. But he really wanted sort of an American where you actually voted and it actually played out like whoever got the most votes from the people.
Yeah.
And this was in 1989? Or?
It was 1994.
1994, 1996. And it's similar to like a JFK type of thing where there's some guy actually is sort of historically known as the guy that killed this guy, assassinated him. Yeah. But there's all these theories. It's like Lee Harvey Oswald, that there was a million other people involved, and there was a lot of cover up, and he was killed right there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was killed during a rally in Tijuana.
Well, but the assassin was...
Oh no, the assassin, the guy who actually was tried and convicted for it, was not killed. He, whether he did it or not is another question. But yeah, he actually is still in prison in a place, in a supermax called Altiplano, which is right outside Mexico City.
Right. So your story is about all these a few different assassins that are all sort of coming in. So it's sort of like a JFK Mexican, JFK thing where you're extrapolating on all the conspiracy theories about this, and it sounds like it would be a very long script. It's only 93 pages, which is amazing because it takes us on this ride. How many different? We're following 3 people, right?
Yeah. So what I did was I took the 3 principal suspects in the crime, and so the 3 characters that are the point people on our way into the story, we see the hour leading up to this assassination from their points of view.
Yeah.
As they all kind of go through their day.
Such a great script, you guys. I wish you could read it. I don't think he would let you because he's weird.
Is this the trailer?
And he won't.
That is the trailer, yes.
I can tweet it because I can't put the link in the thing, but I can tweet it.
Okay, so we're going to tweet out the trailer to Henry Short that ended up sort of predating the feature. So you wrote the script and
which is a great pitch, by the way. I like listening to you tell it. It's better.
Yeah, mine's sort of stupid, but yours is... well, mine's sort of like, like a dummy's trying to explain it or something, you know what I mean? And it's like... A little bit. But it's sort of like that's what it is. Very, very... It's an amazing script. So tight. And then, okay, so you submitted it to BlueCat. Right. Why? Where else did you submit it?
I mean, I think I just did like the Google search of like what are the 10 best screenplay competitions, and BlueCat was like right in the top of that list. Right. And so I sort of like I kind of sent it out to the winners.
You didn't watch any of my videos. I hope not, because that usually turns people off.
You have to say that,
right, Mike. I mean,
I've seen your movies.
I mean, people see one of my videos talking about screenwriting, and it's like our submissions. It's always like we always get like it always spikes down every time we release a new one. It's like
you accuse me of being modest. I mean, it's crazy. I'm just trying to be funny. Talk about what Gordy does, when Gordy goes around
trying to be funny.
all these different places.
Okay, all right. So, anyways, you submit it to BlueCat. You get the feedback in December.
Yeah, and actually, it was funny. I got the feedback, and it came like a week before the deadline, and to resubmit. And so I remember emailing and saying, "Is there any way, is this the drop dead deadline? Because I wanted to resubmit with all the notes that you guys gave me, and I missed it by like 3 days." So
you got the version in that wasn't really like your best shot.
Yeah, it wasn't my best shot. Yeah, but it was because the notes were so good. So I just say that as a point of like, everybody who's been like, around trying to figure out how to crack the nut of screenplay competitions. What's great is the fact that you kind of get 2 shots at BlueCat. I think it makes all the difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you submit it by October 15th, anybody submitted and is going to get their feedback. A lot of feedback's gone back, so we'll get into that. People can resubmit by the 15th, but so then I called you. You won. Yay! You won $15,000, and we did the reading. It was awesome.
It's amazing.
And then we also had Saviana on here. A couple of you met her.
She's fantastic. Her script is also amazing. We just had a nice little group, and then we sent out the notice to the industry. We sent it out to basically everybody who's had their hand in selling a script to a studio or a productions company that has a studio deal. We try and just go to the top, and we figure that they're going to be the ones that are going to help us, help our writers. Now what happened? We sent the email out. What was the experience with that? I mean, it was everything you would hope it would be. I mean, I got a lot of script requests from agents and managers and producers, and sent it out to everyone that emailed me.
And this is a script that, I mean, we had in the pile of 5, we had like the horror script that was probably most kind of commercial.
Yeah.
And then and then we had everything. We had everything in the middle. But your script it's to be shot in Spanish.
That's the other thing. Yeah, it is.
I mean, so it's really not a studio spec.
No, it's not.
No, not at all. So it's not even something that you're never going to go out with it as a like a spec or try to. But it was a strong sample of writing, and so you had a lot. You sent it out, and then what happened? How did you sort through? You had some people come back. They wanted to talk to you. How did that go? Tell that story.
So it was great. Yeah, a lot of people read it. I got some really good responses. I met with a lot of folks who wanted to know about the script, wanted to know about what I was doing next. And it was just, I mean, it's great. I mean, it's amazing when you just getting to write something where other people are like, oh no, I actually understood that. That made sense. That movie in some small way. And so that was amazing. And so then you kind of like, you see with representatives and you meet with a lot of people and you know, to a certain extent, that, I mean, that's still kind of, I've signed with a manager, Michelle Knudsen, who's fantastic at MXN. Her and her partner, Mason Novick, have been like great champions of the script and really helpful.
Now, what are they? Who for people that don't know who they are? Who are they?
They're managers, and they represent, I believe, mostly writers. And they, you know, I think like Mason like discovered like Diablo Cody. Like, I mean, they have amazing taste. And I mean, just from talking to them, like you can see why people would want to work with them, just because they have like. You know, the first time I spoke to Michelle, she had like this X-ray vision for the script of like what was, you know, what kind of animal is it, right? You know, what makes it work? Where can it be better? What are your interests? You know, both like in terms of making movies, but also sort of thematic, kind of bigger world macro issues. And
that's really what a manager will do. Is like they work really closely. An agent does something else, but the manager really is part of your team. It's really part of your development team.
Yeah, it's a creative co-conspirator where it's like they, you know, she immediately understood, you know, it's like I sort of feel like it's like, you know, it's like every script is, you know, I mean, it's like a person. It has like, you know, and a certain kind of emotional quotient and intellectual quotient, and you're kind of like deciding what this thing's going to be. And I felt like the way she saw the script was the way that I had hoped people would see the script. And I got that from a lot of people. Actually, everybody that I met with was really nice and really smart. I mean, I know that when you're from, when I didn't know anything about LA and you sort of hear these horror stories of, oh, this is like the Hollywood person and this is the Hollywood way. I mean, it's not been my experience. I mean, even as a reader, there really aren't that many bad scripts that get made. It just doesn't happen. The people that are involved are really talented and they're all doing their best work to get good stuff made. And yet still making movies is so monumentally fucking hard that it still gets, you know, shit happens. Great people, great writers, great directors, great actors, great producers make bad movies. It just happens.
Right.
And anyway, so that's another diatribe. But so I met with these people and like it was like you just click with somebody and you're like, that's great. And yeah, I mean, that was like, it was exciting to just sort of like have people read your script that are people like from movies that you know and love, right? And so you're like, oh my God, like the people that, you know, made Lord of the Rings, you know, or whatever, read the script, like, you know, people, and you just, I mean, I'm sure it's not those people, I'm sure it's, you know, people inside their organization that are reading it, but it's, I mean, it's still like, I try to think about it like, you know, if I go back in time and I talk to like the 14-year-old version of myself and I say, hey, this thing happened, I'd be like, no, it didn't. You're so full of shit, that didn't happen. You know, there's just no way. So it's like, you know, yeah, it's still really hard. Like, you know, you still have to like write the next script. You still have to find a way to like make ends meet. You know, you find that, you know, like winning BlueCat was an amazing breathing room. Like, you know, I was able to like not have to take editing jobs, and you know, it's been great for me.
Now what happened? Tell us about the Find Lab.
Oh yeah, so the Film Independent Lab was they have a great screenwriting lab, which I highly recommend to anyone that is looking to sharpen their skills as a writer, but also learn how, you know, sort of the business of making movies gets done.
And you have to submit to that, and they choose those people.
Exactly.
It's like a contest.
It's just like a contest.
All over again.
And in fact, like, I would say what's interesting is the people that I met there were like the winners and the finalists from BlueCat, in the sense that it was like a very, like, genial, collegial, like, talented group of people. Everyone's like, I mean, like, everyone's just really nice and very supportive. Like, that part of...
When was that?
So the Film Independent Lab, I just finished at the end of October, or the end of September.
Wow. Was it like every week or something? What was the structure of that?
So you basically, it's like 2 to 3 times a week, and then you basically go in and you read everybody's script that's there, and then they bring in like a screenwriter, like a working screenwriter, who essentially sort of does like a workshop with like the 2 or 3 scripts that you go through that night, and then everyone just like, you know, lays it out on the table, the good and the bad and the ugly, and you just sort of go through and, you know, you workshop that, you know.
Did you have the best script out of anybody in the lab?
I honestly don't know they were all that good. Like, I can say, I don't think I love my script because I wrote it, but there were 2 or 3 scripts that I thought, well, actually, you know what? They were all really good.
If your script rustled other scripts in the lab, who would win?
Who would win? I don't know. Your script wasn't in there, Gordy, so I can't. I feel like you would be like the Roddy Piper.
I mean, if your
You'd be
script,
the Hulk Hogan.
if your script rustled Dog Bowl, Dog Bowl would win.
So everybody needs to see Dog Bowl. I've seen pieces.
Everybody knows about Dog Bowl. It's really. Is this too dark? Can you see me? I mean, it feels. Like
Is it?
I don't know if this is. Does this get dark?
Is my darkness literally sucking the light out?
No. I don't know if it's maybe this will help us. Okay.
Somebody asked, what's the price and cost of the Film Independent Lab?
The price and cost. So the great thing about the Film Independent Lab is you. I think there's like the original submission fee, which is like a I think it's like $30 or $40.
$50, whatever.
Yeah, and then when you make it, that's what's so great. Like they ask you to become a member of Film Independent, which is like an amazing resource anyway. So and that's like an extra $50, and then that's it.
But then it's like winning an award. It's not.
And I should
It's not like a film score you apply.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay.
No. It's a fellowship. I mean, they really they set you up with like
it's like this. It's like a Sundance Development Lab or an IFP or any kind of Sundance Lab. Like they do that in Berlin, the Berlin Film Festival. You know, these labs. They select you and then they cover the costs. And you know, you're here in LA. You're supposed to be in LA though. They don't fly you up. You're supposed to be local?
Local. But there were people, there was a writing team from New York, incredibly talented, who came out and stayed to do this. There's a woman, there's 3 people from New York, actually, who came out and actually just stayed to do the lab. And it's really that valuable. I mean, they pair you with an industry mentor, so they'll have a screenwriter.
Who was your mentor?
He's a guy named James Ponsel, who's amazing. Yeah, I mean, like, I was a huge fan of Spectacular Now. And,
so he wrote Spectacular Now.
He directed that.
And he's directing Young Kim, the Hillary Clinton one?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. So this guy who was
but he wrote Smashed, which was another great movie.
He was Henry's mentor. He's the guy that's directing the BlueCat winner from 2006, his script about Hillary Clinton. So Small World.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. There's
the
3 degrees of BlueCat.
Right.
But he was, I mean, again, like, but that was, the other thing is, like, these people at the Film Independent Lab, they really get writers that are committed to developing other artists. So, like, he was incredibly thorough in his read of the script, gave amazing notes.
Was his notes better than BlueCat reader notes?
You know, different. I think he came at it as a guy who, like, is a director who does these movies.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'm just being weird tonight. I mean, you know how I am. It gets weird. Right, Michelle? Everybody's still down, right? They're into it?
People are, no, dude, there's like 12 people listening, and it's my mother. She just rented 12 computers.
No,
she's watching me on
we're good. Okay, so, and then you won Slam Dance. That just happened.
Yeah, so that just happened.
How many submissions did they get?
That's a really good question. I should know that. I don't know.
But a lot, obviously. That's a big award.
Yeah, no, it was huge. I mean, like, I've written scripts that never went anywhere there. So this is a huge.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and I submitted.
And you're a guest of them you're a guest at the festival. You go there. They're gonna feed you there. And,
well, I'm just going to see Dog Bowl. I mean, that's why I'm going to Park City, right? Isn't that?
You know, don't bring it back to Dog Bowl. So you've done Fine. You've done BlueCat. You've done Slam Dance. Now, where are you gonna direct this film?
Yeah, I would like to.
What's going to happen next? Just real quick. How are you going to make this film?
I'm going to find someone that wants to finance it and that has, you know, the courage to go and actually make it Tijuana. I don't think, I mean, the place is as big a character as anyone in it, so it has to be done there.
Tijuana.
And yeah, which is a beautiful city.
Oh, so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like and also just
I
like
want to work on that movie.
Yeah, dude, I want Gordy on that. You know what's amazing to me about, especially when
you're going to be able to? We're going to get more than pizza rolls?
I don't know. Mike's going to be the caterer, so we're going to have to work that out.
I can answer that right now. Only pizza rolls.
Only pizza rolls. Mm-hmm. Maybe some salsa with the pizza rolls?
Mike is just...
Maybe.
Mike is just brutal.
Here, I got to cuddle up against you. Sorry.
No, we're good. Okay, guys. Well, that's good. I just realized it's time. I know you guys got questions for Henry.
Yeah.
And so why don't we start firing away and just give us the answers, Henry, because I bet you we only got about 45 minutes, so it's like
I'll be fast.
No, it just everybody want to hear them, and because they ask me a lot of stuff, and love to hear your questions, your answers.
Okay, what is your technique and approach? Outline, or is it organic? And then they just want more insight into your writing process.
So that's a really good question. I wish it was more rationalized, and I will say that the way it usually works is I'll have an idea for, it's usually for me, it's always like a character, I guess. And then what I'll do is I'll try and figure out the arc that I would like to see, how this person changes, and then I let my imagination go, what are the hardest ways I can make that change possible? And there's actually something really good that Gordy once told me that I had never heard someone say out loud, so I didn't know that's what I was doing. But it turned out to be what it was, which is, I don't know what you said, that you're like, it's the shit that keeps you up at night, the shit that makes you not sleep, and that's the shit you gotta write about. And so, like, I think for me there is a certain, I don't know if that's like agitprop or, whatever, like things that really make me angry or disturb me or that I wish were different or I wish I could be better about something. So that sounds really pretentious. Anyway, so I find that whatever that thing is, I have an idea for a character, and then essentially I start outlining, and I try to step outline, and then what I've learned...
Step outline, what's that? So
I'll write out like the basic idea, like on like a page or two of like, there's this person, this thing happens to that person. It's surprising that instead of breaking the way we think it's going to go, it breaks in a different way, and then this is the ending. And then from that, I break out like, it's going to start at, interior 7-Eleven. A well-dressed man in a tuxedo steals a cup of coffee and we don't know why, or whatever, something like that, right? And then I would like do the synopses of that. And then I know that if everybody out there is like me, that can get really daunting because it feels sort of uncreative in a way. So what I allow myself to do is if I hit a wall, I'll let myself, like as a treat, I'll get to write a scene. So like, it's always, everybody wants, I love writing dialogue. I love writing, these.
So you're trying to crack your outline, and then when you start to get stuck and bored with your outline, you just write a scene.
Yeah, so like whatever the next thing is. So like if I get stuck in the parking lot and my next scene is inside of a morgue, I let myself, instead of doing the synopsis of what that scene in the morgue is, I actually let myself write that scene out. And then if I'm still in the mood, then I just keep writing it out. Similarly, if I feel like I have too many ideas and I can't get everything out fast enough, then I just sort of write it like it's like a book, right? So, you just write it like dialogue instead of doing, all the keys for final draft or movie magic that you do. It's just like I just write it like a novel. And then, so it's sort of like, there's sort of like 3 speeds, I guess. I don't know. That's how I do it.
That's cool. Okay, next question.
All right, is your script available online?
It's not currently online, I don't think.
I think the issue is that if he's going to try and make it and he's trying to get people involved, he doesn't really want it to spread out. It's almost like the movie's like in pre-production, so you don't really want to get it out there right now and make it available. So it's frustrating because it's the kind of script that is so educational to read. I think for writers, well, it is what you're not supposed to do. No. It's a beautiful script. I wish you could read it because it's really a joy, but it makes a lot of sense that it's not available. So next question.
What are you proudest of in the script, and how is it different than others that you've seen as your job as a reader?
That's a really good question. So many smart people out there. So I would say the thing that I felt.
What's the thing that you feel like you accomplished that other people are not? Most of the scripts you read aren't able to get there. I know that sounds, but you just got to detach and be like, what is it that makes it work? Because it really is outside of you now.
Yeah.
It's really
it's not really even me anymore.
It's like you created this thing and now you can look at it and be like, the thing rocks because this, and most people don't really.
I guess, like the thing, there's like, like everybody else, like I started with like the Lajos Egri dramatic writing book, right? On dramatic writing or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I really loved the John Sayles like Thinking in Pictures book, and then the McKee. I did the McKee seminar. I literally was like, I'll do anything. Just tell me how I got to do this.
Right.
And the one thing that I found from a lot of those books is that they're really good at helping you revise a script once it's done. They don't really tell you how you get the inspiration and how you have a good story to tell. They tell you how to be a good writer. And then you start to realize, like, writing is, like, such a small part of it. And the way I segue from that is a lot of stuff that I read that are, like, great scripts, I mean, there's, like, typos and there's all these problems with them, you know, like, characters just, like, disappear. But the story's so good that you're just like, that doesn't really matter. Like, I'm just, this is the soup. I don't care about the soup. I care about the chicken or the fish or whatever's in the soup, right?
Right.
And so what I hope and what I like most about the script is because there's 3 intersecting storylines. I think that if you were to break it out, you would see that the way, or I hope when you break it out, that each scene compounds a problem that the previous character had in a completely different scenario, but then emotionally they're having to make the same choice, so that you're splitting it in a way where each one of these characters is having to both shed new light on this problem that a different character had in the previous scene, and then complicate it and escalate it in a way that they hand it off to the next scene. So it's sort of like a relay race.
Right.
So
it's sort of like a what?
Like a relay race. Like you have these different runners, and they're all kind of going around the same circle, right? And they're
it's this cumulative emotional escalate.
I don't know. Does it do that, or I'm probably lying?
There's an emotional momentum to the piece, which is it needs to. That's how great movies operate. So, and you're right. I mean, things lose their pace and their momentum and their punch in other scripts, and this one does seem to abet the next move that the story takes and goes forward.
And I have to say, like I'm like so many other people. Like I feel like not in this particular script, but like I rip that off a lot from some. I mean, William Gibson's early books do a lot of that, where there are kind of these ensembles, and there are these characters in this like very complicated sort of world, but emotionally they're all wrestling with the same one thing. And so I always found that compelling as
it works thematically, like emotionally. They're all sort of there's a through line of desperation through the whole piece, that everyone's sort of on the same, sort of fair, merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Like they're both in this like spiritually bankrupt merry-go-round, and it's the same ride.
Yeah.
Even though they're all different characters. So.
Do you try to find a theme for your stories, or how important do you think having a theme is?
That, and I'm not kidding, that's a really good question, only because one of my favorite books on screenwriting is the William Goldman book, Adventures in Screenwriting, or it's the other one, the What Lie They All Tell. I can't remember, but in one of those books he says, like he remembers like going to like some college and some student like writing up, well, all of your scripts on page 5 state the theme. Like, how do you come up to that? And he's like, I don't ever think about theme. Like, that's garbage. Like, or I can't remember. I'm paraphrasing.
I've never seen. I don't think about theme either.
I've never been. But I think smart people. Story. I know there are smart people that write really good scripts that I've met. That like that's how their brain can work on that level. For me, it's just like, does that feel real? Does he really grab the knife that way? Can I? Does it feel organic if he's like eating an apple because I need someone to slip on a banana peel? I mean, you know what I mean? Like. And it's not really that.
Yeah, I'm more story.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that's story, but I've never. Yeah. Theme questions are always. It's always like the audience sort of defines the theme later for you, and everybody's got their own answer.
Well, it's like screenwriting books.
But what about tone?
Tone, I think tone is one of those things that you have to know what your movie is, what your story is from the beginning. I would say that's probably the only thing that probably doesn't change, because you're always rewriting and trying to sharpen things. But tone is something that, I think that's the Rubicon.
What would you say if somebody said, what is tone? What are you talking about?
Tone is that irreducible part of the soul of your story that if you change it, it changes everything. So, in a simple way, I mean, I'm cribbing myself because I'm so unnaturally, stupid. But, so, no, I mean, I think there was something I think in your interview question, you had a really good question, and I was talking about something like Rambo, and I was trying to think, and I was like, oh, well, context, in the case of you take John Rambo and you put him in Vietnam, and he's an amazing warrior who gets all these medals and commendations, and then you put him after the war in a small town where he sees the same injustice, and he is a menace to society, so it's the tone of that is this person is irreducibly who they are, regardless of the context you put them in. And part of what that gives you is, you know, a signpost. You know, it's your Rubicon. You know, you change that. You don't let him be true to himself, and you don't really have a story. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not really tone. I mean, technically, tone is just the way in which the dramatic is exposed and revealed in a story. I mean, I don't know,
right?
But I mean, like that's what tone is. But I mean, for me, it sort of goes deeper, which is like you kind of need to have that and your character sort of be the same thing because they're the way our audience is into the story, and you're judging everything that happens to them and everything that happens in the world through their point of view.
Great. Sounds great. All right. Another question.
Any tips on how to keep track of intersecting storylines as you write a script?
Any tips?
Oh yeah, that's
any tips on how to keep? Do we hear you when you say that?
Oh.
I don't know. I guess can you hear Michelle? Let us know. Anyway, so she asked about any tips on how to keep intersecting stories going in a movie.
That's a great question.
This is one of the things that's super hyper brilliant about his script is that he's taking these three things. You never lose sight of who's who and who they are, and there doesn't feel like there's like a lot of people struggle with like when they're doing like ensemble pieces and there's just a clutter of characters and it's hard to figure out what's going on. But in your case, that's not what happened. So what were the things that you kept your eye on when you were doing this script?
I actually have a simple answer for this one, which is I just wrote 3 separate stories, and I knew the story was working when each scene broke in that way where I felt like the question that's asked by the end of this scene is answered in this other scene with this other character. And then as soon as I saw that, it actually just sort of lined up. But I mean, just like in terms of like where the rubber hits the road on that, like it's just I wrote 3 separate stories, just completely like scripts, just like that's what it was.
Oh.
And it was just like, okay, now I know where this arc is moving this way. How do I subvert your expectations and change it in a different direction with another character?
That's cool.
It worked for me. It was great.
Yeah. Good. That's very simple. Very practical.
The first simple answer.
Well, it's practical.
Okay. Did you know when you wrote the winning script that it was something special?
That is, guys, I'll stop saying it's a good question, but that is a good question only because when I wrote the script, I felt like for the first time I had an ending that I liked to a script. I didn't know if the script was any good.
Oh, that's cool.
And like
it's nice to know. It's nice when you have a good ending.
Yeah, and you're like, oh,
I have a good ending.
It made sense to me.
This ending rocks.
And I have a hard time with endings in general. So
it's very difficult.
How many drafts did you have done?
Before when?
When you submitted it.
When I submitted it, I think this was. I mean, honestly, this was kind of the first draft and a half. Like I didn't do any like big structural work. Like I wrote this, and then of course like I read it and fixed things, and then kind of like rearranged some characters. I think I cut out some characters, but this was close to a kitchen sink draft. That's why when I got your notes, I was like, oh yeah, okay, wait, I can nail it. So yeah, but that's also like that. I feel like that's an anomaly. Like everybody, you just keep writing. Yeah. There's always revisions.
But how many? Were there sections of the script where you pounded like 20 times over? And
oh yeah, I mean, there are a couple of scenes that and those are always the ones that you're having a problem with. Like if it's not supposed to come easy, but it should be complete, and it's like oh my god, I really don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not qualified to say this, but it seems to me that like the scenes that I felt like I would want to keep reworking were the ones that ended up either getting cut out or I had a whole dialogue and then it was like, no, he just picks up a rock and throws it. And that says everything that all this dialogue does. Mm-hmm. So but I mean, there's also like a process of discovery. I don't know if you guys find that. It's like when you're writing, you're like, oh, okay, I thought the scene was about this. And you're like, nope, it's about the thing at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you gotta,
So how many critiques did you get before getting the final winning script?
I mean,
how many people read it before? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I think probably 3. Let me say, is that right?
Do people give you?
2.
Are you talking about?
Yeah, 3, and yes, I got 3, and 2 of them were really like amazing.
And these are from your like, who do you ask to read your script?
Again, it's always like it's a roving group. But yeah, like friends from school that are all really good writers.
The guy outside 7-Eleven with the paper cup.
Always him, but only because he knows how to get gum off the bottom of my shoe. He's like great at that. He's like ice with a little credit card. So that guy's he's my buddy. You know Joe. Yeah. So friends from school, people whose scripts that I was a big fan of that I read and struck up relationships with them. And also like I mean there's always like I mean I always like you call it like a civilian read like all like you know like my mom or like my mother-in-law.
Civilian reads.
Yeah, so people like that have no concept of what screenplay structure is because when you talk to people that don't read screenplays a lot, they're always like they think it's just dialogue, right? So they're like, oh, this is gonna be really boring. Oh god, So you start to realize like which is also sort of good because like I mean something that they talk about that I'm just learning is like you write for the read, which is people who are reading your script that are gonna want to work with you as a writer versus like writing for the actual film you shoot, and it's two different things. And writing for the read is the thing that I've been sort of like learning and sort of unlearning from the Corman days and then trying to learn now, which is it's okay to write in a way that you would be turning the page on something that was like a Raymond Chandler short story. And I think there's no mistake in my mind that there are certain writers like Chandler or Dashiell Hammett or, Flannery O'Connor or, I mean, there's like so many of these writers that when you read them, it's just the prose crackles, and, John Gardner's like that. I mean, there's so many of these people that when you read them, James Salzman is a guy who I like a lot. I mean, these are people that like when you read their stuff, you're like, oh Christ, this is already a movie. Like you don't have to do anything. And so like I like to read that stuff. And my point being is like when you give it to someone that is not in entertainment, doesn't read scripts, that's how they're going to read it. So they're usually coming with the prejudice of like, this is going to be like very formalistic and boring. And they come away and they're like, oh, I really like this piece. That felt like a book or that felt like something I would see. Yeah. And so those are good moments because then you kind of know, it's like you kind of put a pin in that and you're like, okay, that's working outside of the artifice of making a movie. That just works. Okay. So what other places where I'm doing that I need to make better or I can get rid of it and just keep that. I mean, that's kind of how I always think about it.
How long is your drafting process?
Drafting meaning like finish a first draft and then like go through it. I mean, I think it's kind of never ending. I mean, if I'm being honest. But I mean, I think like you usually have, or at least I feel like I have, a script that's readable probably within 3 drafts.
Yeah. And how many scripts have you written total, shorts and features? That's a big question.
I know it's enough that I honestly couldn't tell you exactly the number. I mean, TV pilots too. I mean, stuff like that. And I mean, it was funny. Like, I actually got some emails after winning because I guess my email was there, and I know really thoughtful emails from a lot of people, and I tried to answer as many as I could. But this one woman wrote me this really good one. And she was talking about, well, I just, I don't know if, my level of experience, sort of life experience and the stuff that I'm doing, if it's valid, but then it's like, I feel like when I write, how do I know if what I'm writing is any good? Which, honestly, I think that, like, Steve Zalian probably asks himself that, too. I mean, I don't know if anybody ever gets completely beyond that. And so, what's interesting to me is, about the drafting process and about the writing process is that when you go through these things and you work so hard on them, I feel like my internal metric is I know when it's garbage. I know when it's really bad. And that's the stuff I really don't show anybody, not even my closest, family members and loved ones. The stuff that's good, I genuinely, I know it's working sometimes. I know that like in the case of the script, I was like, oh, that's an ending. Like that's a movie. It feels like, I've closed the loop on these characters.
Yeah.
So I feel like that really makes sense to me and it resonates. But whether it's good or not, I don't know if you can really judge your own work. And that's not false humility or anything else. I think that's just, if you're really being brutally fucking honest with yourself, you're not in a position to judge that.
Okay.
How colorful can you get with prose and description in the script?
He was intimating that a little earlier, that you write for the read.
Yeah, I mean, like, there was a term that someone had told me, and, like, the truth is, like, I mean, honestly, the Stephen King book on writing, which is, like, avoid adverbs, like, stylistically about that, I mean, I try not to use compound sentences, I try not to use adverbs, you know, and, you know, try to, like, I remember, like a girl in high school that I went out with was really into basho poetry. And if anybody, like, that sounds really esoteric, except that it's like a line in Caddyshack where, like, Chevy Chase is, like, walking with Danny, and he, like, has some line, and he's like, yeah, that's basho, like, you know, a Japanese poet or whatever. And I just remember, like, so I remember, like, having this girl, and she's like, oh, and she, like, got me his poetry, and I, like, read through it, and it's mostly haikus, right? So it's just, like, you know, but there's something about, like, poetry that's, like, super condensed. You know, I'm not talking about, like, E. Cummings or, like, formalists, but, like, really good, just sort of, like, meat and potatoes. That's what I try to go for.
That's what Josh Nathan, who attended the Werner Herzog lab, you know, Herzog was talking about it. You know,
that's so cool that
he reads a lot of poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I know he's like a big Rilke fan and stuff like that.
Yeah, he just reads all the poetry and then starts making a movie or whatever.
I remember when I first worked for Roger, like, one of the posters that he had in his office was Fitzcarraldo. And he's like, oh yeah, I distributed, like, on the original theatrical release, I think he, like, was one of the distributors. And I was like, oh my God, you met Werner Herzog? And he's like, of course. And I was like, oh my, I can't, I mean, and then Josh has met Werner Herzog. I mean, that's,
yeah, of course.
So,
okay.
What do you know about writing that you wish you knew when you were working on your first couple scripts?
Don't sweat about it being perfect. What you think is going to make it better, a lot of times it doesn't matter. You just have to figure out what the story is. And then, sadly, a lot of it sort of falls in place after that once you know what the story is.
Mm.
So don't be perfect.
So you feel like at the beginning you were really trying to
I feel
really hard on yourself.
Yeah, I still do that now. I mean, like, the kitchen sink draft, the vomit draft, you know, the Kurt Vonnegut line, like, writing is vomiting and picking out the good parts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, that's, you know, but you have to have it out before you can really do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Could you dispel a bad piece of advice concerning writing?
Bad, that's a good question.
What are the things that people say that you hear, like, sort of fashionable things for people to say, and you're just like,
I remember,
really
like,
work.
a college, creative writing, like, you know, in college I was writing short stories, and I, you know, did, like, a minor in creative writing. And just that you'll never make it as a writer. I mean, I just remember this, like, professor who was, like, an Iowa workshop guy being like, you'll never make it as a fucking writer. And he actually used the expletive, and I remember just being, like, crushed.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, and maybe he was, like, smart, and he knew that I needed that so that, like, I had to stand on my own and do it. But I just remember, like, don't ever believe that people say you can't be a writer. Like, I read this book recently called Knock'em Stiff, Ohio. It's a great book, amazingly cinematic prose. And, like, the guy, I think he, like, worked, I can't remember, he was a factory worker, but he, like, worked on a line, and, like, it took him ages to write this book. And it is close to a perfect collection of shorts. I mean, it's close to a... And, like, there's another book called Crimes in Southern Indiana that I read recently, and, like, you know, and even in the book that you buy, like, there's, like, copy editorial mistakes that are, like, prolific. And the guy has such a mastery of character and tone that you don't care, because the stories are, like, Carver good. Like, it breaks your heart. Every one you read, it just, like, rips up a little part of your inside and feeds it to you on a platter. And you keep coming back for more because it's so compelling.
Wow.
What are the names of the books again?
Crimes in Southern Indiana is one of them. And then Knock'em Stiff is all one word, I believe. And it's a real town in Ohio, or it was a real town in Ohio. It's called Knock'em Stiff, Ohio. I read it as everything I get my hands on, you know, but I really do like to read books.
What else?
What do you know about writing that you would... Oh, wait, no, I asked you that one already, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, just don't believe people when they tell you you can't be a writer, because those people are...
I mean, I'll have to just add something to that. You know, before I ever started teaching, I thought that I could probably tell who was going to be successful and who wasn't. And then after I started teaching, and the longer I've taught, I realized that you can never tell who's going to be who's what or whatever.
Wow.
So I never ever like making a jump and go, that person will never, no matter what shape their script in is or whatever, I don't ever, because I've seen so much change in writers that, yeah. So if anyone tells you or you tell yourself anything like that, you might want to pump the brakes a little bit.
How many screenplays should a beginner writer write?
Oh, as many as they have time to, I think. Yeah. I mean, keep writing. Yeah, beginning writer, write as many scripts as you have the patience and the persistence to do.
Okay. How much time do you spend away from your work while writing?
Yeah, what are your habits? What do you do? How do you?
So
operate?
the great news is I've been sort of writing full time for a while now. I say full time, but I mean like during the day and do it. And I pretty much write in the morning until like 6. I mean, I have a very kind of and again, this is all based on stuff that I read from other writers that I liked. Like I feel like there was some really good advice in the John Gardner book on writing, the Stephen King book on writing.
What's the name of the John Gardner book?
I think it's How to Write a Novel. It's a generic title, and I can't remember because it's a really good question.
What's the John Sayles book?
Oh, Thinking in Pictures. That one's great. That one's more about movies and less about writing specifically. But my process is I get up, I swim every day. During the week, early, and then I make my breakfast. I make my lunch. I go sit down. I write until it's time to eat lunch. I eat lunch. I come back and I write, and then I don't know I'm sure there are people that are much better than me. Like when you're in the moment, I think everybody has that. You can just keep writing. You can write 4 days straight. But when you're not, it's kind of like you just sort of show up, dressed up in a suit. I think of it as just sort of like a very like factory work kind of thing. Like you just show up and you hope something good comes out of it. But if it doesn't, you at least feel good that you were there.
So you get started around 9 or 8 or
really more like 10:30 probably.
And then you write for a few hours. When do you have lunch?
Yeah, and then probably like 2 or 3 maybe. Maybe sometimes 1:30, 1:30.
Do you write after lunch too?
Yeah, so then I go until 6.
Okay.
And then I'll break for dinner, and then after dinner, if I have something I want to do, then I'll just go until I go to sleep. But I don't usually write.
When do you read?
So I usually read weekends. I read a lot. So like I write every day, but on the weekends it's probably more like a half day, like 5 or 6 hours maybe, and then I just read. I'm still doing reading work. So that keeps me busy on certain times. But then I was never someone who was very good with discipline, and it's just like with writing, like that's probably like the one thing that has been like really good, which was I realized like, oh wow, I actually kind of thrive if I say like you have 4 hours to do this, you have like 3 hours to do this, and you just have to do it. And then my mom had this friend, being from Texas, there's like all these people that, West Texas especially, people that come out there and been there for generations on these small little farms, not really farms, but ranches really. And she has this friend, Buzz Mead, who would say, life is full of brushing your teeth and taking a shit. You better learn to like both of them. And I still, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm sure, but that was always the thing. So I feel like that was the thing about writing, which is you got to learn to love the good parts and the bad parts, but part of that's just doing it every day. So I don't know.
Cool.
Do you have a specific genre that you like to write, or do you feel it necessary to branch out and try everything?
That's another great question. The short answer is I think with the genre that I feel most comfortable in tends to be sort of dramas and thrillers, but definitely more on the thriller end, I would think. And in science fiction, I like. I haven't really been able to execute as well in that genre as I want to. I have something, that I've been working on that I think is going to, nail that. But yeah, I would say thrillers probably. And then, within thrillers, there's sci-fi thrillers, there is espionage, there is, crime. But yeah, I would say thriller is my favorite.
Do you feel different when writing conflicting characters?
Yes. In the sense that I think conflict is like essential. That's the best way to get exposition out. One thing I learned from the Roger days of like movies that would be shot by multiple directors and have big problems, one of the things that I learned was you always put the exposition on the character you care about most. So put it in their mouth because it will absolutely make the audience feel more vested in the story. So, which is actually kind of hard because if you notice, the characters you care about most tend to be the most active. So having them dump out exposition is always challenging. So like the old adage, I think, exposition is ammunition. Finding a way to put more conflict between your characters gives them more excuses for recriminations and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
How many scripts do you work on at once, and how do you move from one script to the other?
It's really good. I only ever been able to write 2 at once, and I just go until I get bored or angry or pissed off that I can't figure out one, and then I move over to the other.
Do you ever stay on one for like a couple weeks and then go?
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't switch off like in the same day. I mean, I have if you have to. I remember reading a really great anecdote about James Cameron when he was writing Terminator, and he was also writing maybe it was like a draft of Conan or something. But what he did was he had two record players, I think, like in a room. I'm probably screwing this up, but he would listen to one album for one script, and the moment he needed to switch over, he like put on the record player and listen to the other album while he did the other script, and that helped him locate where he was. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
That's cool.
What are a couple of your favorite movies, and why do you admire them?
A couple of my favorite movies. I mean, I guess I'll say Happy Together, just because I said it before. Wong Kar-wai is like, for my money, hands down, does poetic realism better than anybody. Especially in his earlier films. I really am a big fan of Rules of the Game, which is a genre noir movie, mostly because it's like weird seeing a period movie where it's like the camera's on sticks and it's like moving on these crazy dolly tracks and everything is very kind of like, I mean, just sort of classical, right? And people are in costumes and it's in like a chateau or whatever. And yet the sequence where they're like out killing rabbits and they're actually like dying, you're watching this happen, and the acting is so naturalistic and humanistic. So when you watch it, you're like, oh wow, people in the past actually acted and swore the way that we do in the present, and they had like really uncontrollable sexual urges and like, so anything I guess that he does, I feel like there's a naturalism to Renoir that those movies are really great. I'm a big fan of like Pacula, like I love All the President's Men, Parallax View, paranoid thrillers. I mean, he sort of like, in my mind, he pioneered for film what writers like, I don't know, like Joseph Heller, just like taking big ideas and like making people scared about it and making people run in the direction of the truth and then discover stuff. So I love like all the Pacula pictures.
And someone mentioned the Parallax View in the...
Oh, really?
Earlier, actually.
See, look at this. I'm actually reading all your comments. No, I wish I was. Yeah, so those are movies. But I also like, I mean, I'm a pretty omnivorous moviegoer. Like, I actually like most of the Marvel movies.
What is some stuff recently that you've seen
that I really liked
that you would recommend to our viewers?
Man, I
saw Fury.
I liked Fury a lot. I actually really liked Fury a lot. And it's funny because I was shocked reading some of the reviews.
Did you like Frozen?
I love Frozen. But you know what? I liked Tangled better.
Oh.
So I definitely, it was weird. Like, I liked Frozen, but I didn't like the big twist at the end. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. Anybody with kids probably has seen Frozen millions of times, so I'm not ruining anything. Yeah, no, Frozen was great. I mean, Pixar, they don't write bad scripts. That's amazing to me. And that they have one voice, and yet they're written, I mean, ostensibly I hear the stories that they're written by like 7 or 8 people. It's amazing that they have such a consistency of vision for those movies. But
what about recently? Fury?
Yeah, Fury I thought was amazing, again, for that same reason that I was saying before. It's like you have a period piece, but it also is just sort of about the tortures of war, but I feel like everybody gets dignity in that movie on both sides of the conflict, but also just like they pay an iron price for what they're going through. I love Game of Thrones, iron price. I watch a lot of TV. I mean, I love all the usual suspects, but I'm a huge fan of Breaking Bad. I mean, I feel like for writing right now, with sort of sporadic exceptions, the best writing is on TV right now.
What show that's out right now would you say?
I like The Affair, the one that just came out. I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but the way that they
what is that?
So it's like basically the story of these two, this man and this woman who are married, and they're on, I think they're in the Hamptons, some resort destination for the summer, and they have an affair, and it's how the affair unfolds from both of their points of view, which sounds very kind of like formal and like something you would see in a film school class, but it actually, the emotional texture that they've been able to feather in for each one of them is so honest and like denuding emotionally that I found it like compelling more than I ever expected. I like Homeland, I mean, sometimes it gets a little histrionic in the plot twists, but I still really like the writing there. I really like, I don't know, name a movie. Fury. Fury, I really like Fury a lot. I don't tend to like period pieces, but I love World War II movies and Vietnam movies. I love all Vietnam movies. Just, I don't know why. I love Vietnam memoirs, like, for reading. But yeah, I mean, I feel like any movie that makes you wonder what you would do in that movie, that is the mark of a good story. The moment you put yourself in the driver's seat and see, okay, would I actually do that? Oh, I would. Then it's like you're actually seeing something on screen that's really about you. And it creates that intimacy. I'm being really pretentious. Yeah, so I don't know. I pretty much watch a lot of movies.
Okay, well, very good.
Do you follow the hero's journey at all your in your stories, or Joseph Campbell, The Hero with a Thousand Faces?
Great book, as is the Christopher Vogler book about his sort of understanding of the hero's journey is another great book. You know, I've read it. I have to say I don't subscribe to anything in particular, but I definitely think that Joseph Campbell. I mean, I love Star Wars. I mean, that is like the perfect articulation. I mean, I think even Lucas hired him to like help him work on that at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably confabulating that, but I think, like, I mean, you know, it's like perfect the way that Star Wars, you know, first movie and really Empire Strikes Back, like follow that model.
What else?
Do you take time off from a script before a rewrite?
Yes. I think you got to do that. Give yourself some perspective. I mean, I always try to work on something else, even if it's not something that will ever see the light of day. Like, you know, I do always sort of have something that I'm working on, you know, that's just sort of like for me, just to keep myself fresh. But yeah, definitely getting some distance between you and a rewrite's a good idea. In my point of view.
This is more a question about the affair. How important is the fact that we still don't know the identity of the the identity of the dead person after 3 hours in the affair?
I mean, I feel like I have my theory about what that is about. I mean, I think that was actually a pretty good choice on their part, where they realized it's kind of like a movie like DOA, the original and the remake, work because the person's being interrogated, and then you're basically having to go back to the story. And part of the fun as an audience is teasing those things out, and how believable is it that we confused something or expected something that wasn't the way it was. I think that the writers on that show, and I don't know them personally. I don't even know their names off the top of my head. I bet you they're going to tell us who that is really quickly, just because the writing is so good. They don't really need that conceit anymore. It's kind of like the Mad Men conceit of like, oh my God, you know, Don Draper is like not who he says he is, and you're like, they blew that up. I mean, in episode 3, I mean, they're turning cars, throwing cars, and blowing shit up, you know, every way on that show, right? And they're like, oh, you thought it was about that? No, it's about the people. It's about the characters. Like, all this other stuff is just a pyrotechnic, so there's enough light to shed light on what these people are doing, so you care about them.
Right.
All right, back to your writing. Do you write novels and short stories or short stories?
I've not that you'll ever read. How's that?
You won't share them with anybody?
No, they're just not any good. Like, I don't know how people really... I mean, like, I've started things, but it's usually just because, like, I'll have an idea that I know is not a script, and I'll kind of, like, just be like, all right, let's see how much gas is in the tank on that. And then I'll stall out, you know?
Will you read my novel and give me notes?
Absolutely.
It's 3,000 pages.
Right.
I'm just
Oh, I've already read that, right?
I'm just kidding, yeah.
That's the Torah. I've read that one. It's pretty good.
Was that a question, or was that...
No, I just...
That was my...
Yeah.
Mike distraction. Okay, Michelle, we got more?
Yeah. Do you have certain music pieces or tracks that you have in mind when you're writing for your stories?
Depends on the script. There was a script that I wrote once. I don't know if anybody's like a Morrissey or Smiths fan, but like, yeah, right? And what's amazing is there's like a huge Latino community, and they have like all these cover bands where they do all the Smiths songs especially, and some of the Morrissey stuff, and they just do it in Spanish. And I was like, I had this idea for a movie, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be the Smiths' first album, and it's going to be a quartet of mariachis, and we're going to do everything in mariachi. So when you hear that, it's like you realize you're thinking about that while this character is sort of skating in between these two worlds of, you know, living on a border between these criminal gangs, of like whether he would go with like, you know, the one on the American side or the one on the Mexican side.
That's awesome.
Anyways, but it was like, that was like one of those things where I was like, oh, like I now got this character. I mean, I do have to say music is something that like I always think about a character. I'm like, what does this guy listen to? What is she like? Like, is she a punk rock guitarist, or is she like Under Segovia? Is she doing like, you know, some crazy flamenco stuff? Like, what's her soundtrack, and how does that like keep the pulse of her going? I don't know. It's mostly a way to just keep things interesting.
That sounds so cool.
Gordy's the best, man. You're so encouraging, dude.
I mean, it does, doesn't it? Mariachi playing the Smiths.
Wouldn't that be cool? So let's make that movie.
YouTube somewhere.
See?
Really? See?
It's cool.
Someone's going to be like, here's the address. Yeah.
Okay, we only got time for a couple more here. So what do we got, Michelle?
How do you come up with a great title?
He doesn't. Oh, no. Three Faces of Hunger and Thirst. Hunger and Thirst.
So that title, if anybody's curious where it came from, is that Colosio had the speech where he kind of outlined what he wanted to do, and it's called like in
Don't name your script something that you have to have a big explanation where.
How do you come up with your script titles? Think about what Joe Strummer would do for a song on how they got up all the great titles on London Calling, and then
how did he do that?
I have no idea. I'm just guessing, or Brian Eno, how did he come up with all the names of his tracks or all those U2 tracks? I think about those guys. I'm like, how do they come up with those friggin'
Three Faces of Hunger and Thirst? Everyone loves that title.
It's great. It's the only good part of the script, right? I mean, that's really what it was. He thought it was the movie title contest that they have, but actually,
was it nominated for a movie title?
No, I don't think it was. I think you guys just completely sandbagged me on that.
I think that was when I think Mike was involved with the movie title contest.
I think I compiled the first batch.
They were great.
All the guys in the office last year. If I had seen that title, I would have think Mike had something like.
I remember there was a movie just called. I forget what it was called. I probably shouldn't say.
Yeah, because it probably is going to be a weird way to end the whole Ustream. Is the you. Saying something that
Mike bagging on somebody.
Yeah, Mike.
It was a good title. It wasn't going to be.
Mike just took the Ustream and took it down an alley, and now we're stuck there, and we got to back out because we can't turn around. Yeah, it's like get us out of the alley, Mike. Thank you. Okay, got a couple more questions. I know we got a bunch. He's great, isn't he? This is our winner, BlueCat winner. He's so smart. Yeah, a lot of questions.
Do you drink when you write?
I've never tried that. I've always wanted to try it, though.
You said wine and movies.
Yeah, I don't.
That's a fair question.
I don't drink when I write, but a lot of the writers I love do that. So it must work for somebody. I don't think I'd be able. I think I'd just fall asleep. I'm not really much of a drinker. I gotta say.
What do I drink? Starbucks.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's why you don't sleep.
Chocolate milk. Water. I drink a lot of water when I'm writing. When I do write. Well, very good, Michelle. What else you got?
Anything else? Someone wants to know if you've seen True Detectives.
Yes.
And
True Detective.
How do you feel about the second season cast and director changes?
Super stoked about everything to do with True Detective.
Who's doing the second season?
They're doing each director only gets to do 2, I think. And Cary Fukunaga, who did the first one, is not involved, or not directing. And I think it's Vince Vaughn, and I think is it Mark Ruffalo?
No, it's
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. Yeah.
Who's the girl?
It was going to be Jessica Chastain, and now it's somebody else. It's somebody else.
Colin Farrell.
I should know this.
And who's the director? There's a director who's going to do the whole season again? Or?
No, they're only doing. I think they're only doing 2 directors. Each director gets to do 2 episodes, and I remember whoever it was that I read. I was like, oh yeah, that's who you need to do that.
What did you think of the first season?
I loved it. Mostly, the part that I really liked about it was that they were not scared to completely. The courage to create an entire universe around their characters with underground books that really exist, and the world building. It felt like a piece of fantasy, and because of that, there's a lot of fantastical things that they do in the script that they get away with. Because you're already inside this world that is constructed with, instead of if we're at 1 gravity, there it's 0.92, but you don't notice it because it's just sort of David Lynch thing where it's just creeping up on you, and you buy all these things that in a more naturalistic context you won't, but yet they ground it because everybody has the consequences for their actions are all the same.
Did you see Jim Carrey do those Lincoln commercials?
Oh, that was so good.
On Saturday Night Live. Those are really funny, you guys.
Oh, I gotta do that.
Anybody who's a true Matthew McConaughey fan, which I totally am, I think he's awesome.
Did you like the show?
I did. I thought the story was a little, I don't think the story ultimately ended up being anything special. But I watched that one sequence at the end of one episode where he's undercover and he goes in and then it all goes bad and he's got to get him out of there and he's got to escape. That I watched that a couple times because I was like, how is that like just setting that up and shooting that, man, that was a lot of work. But that was really cool. That was really cool filmmaking and really super exciting. But I thought ultimately, by the time I got to the end, I was like, it's a tough nut to crack. It's like a mystery like that because it ends up being like, the perpetrator is somebody that we don't really notice. And then it's just kind of like, oh, he mows lawns. Let's check the lawn mowing records, and then it didn't feel like it was really up to the
quality of before
of everything that was going on. The thing that was sort of building sort of set us up for something that it didn't really. Yeah, it sort of was like. But I watched the whole thing. So my question was,
it felt like in a weird way that like made it more like sort of like I don't know like a Heart of Darkness or like Secret Share. Like there was this weird Conradian thing that you think the story is about this like crime procedural. But really, it's like these guys having to sort of deal with all the crimes they've committed. And like the reason that they miss the guy is because they're so self-absorbed in what they're going through that it's like obviously they miss the criminal because they're... That's probably total bullshit. I'm going to take that back. We'll take it back.
Really, basically everything you said so far in the whole interview was great. And then you just totally didn't make sense.
I just took a hot, steaming dump on the whole thing.
I don't even know what that was. Anyways, Michelle, we have one more question. Got a good one? I know you got a bunch, but...
What advice do you give to new screenwriters?
New screenwriters.
Read as much as you can. Keep giving me a question, and I'll try and be faster.
Well, read what
read
scripts or books?
Read both. Read whatever you like, and read as much of that as you can. Because it doesn't matter what you read, whether if it's a news story, if it's
what if it's like the internet?
Then it's okay. Yeah.
I mean, like...
Yeah, what if it's Wikipedia?
But what would you say, like... What's 3 novels that somebody should read?
3 novels someone should read.
I know there's a million.
No, that's good. No, I'll just go off the top of my head. I'll give you 3 scripts and 3 novels. I think for novels, I would go Catch-22 because the dialogue's so good.
Catch-22.
I would say you should read. I like The Moviegoer. Walker Percy novel is the one.
The Moviegoer.
The Moviegoer. It's an amazing book. Walker Percy is just like. I mean, his prose are just like gold.
Okay, Moviegoer.
And I will go ahead and just pick something, and then Spy Game. I don't know. Any John Le Carre book is amazing.
Spy Game.
Yeah.
Okay, what about 3 scripts?
I think that's the name of his first one. I think it's... No, that's the name of the movie. You know the... it doesn't matter. But any John Le Carre book, yeah. Okay, 3 scripts. What was the name of the movie that like broke Kate Winslet that Peter Jackson directed? Heavenly Creatures?
Yep.
Yeah. That script was like the first script I read, and I was like, oh my god, a script can be like literature. I love that. I think the script...
Heavenly Creatures.
The script for Never Let Me Go, if you can find it, is the movie I know had its problems. The script to me is like...
Yeah, it's an adaptation, right?
Yeah, it's an adaptation, exactly. Yeah. And the book is great, right? Because it's the guy who did Howard's End. He's a genius.
Never Let Me Go.
Never Let Me Go script. And I think Chinatown still has a lot to it.
Chinatown.
I mean, it's classic. Can't get rid of the classics.
Those are awesome. Henry?
Gordy.
Thank you so much. We might have to have you back. We might have to have you back next year. We'll check it back.
You're gonna get someone better. It's just every time it's always getting better for you. You'll forget my name.
No, because you have a lot. I will forget your name, but you have a lot to say. People have a lot of questions, right?
Oh yeah.
They're just coming in hard because they knew you're really smart and you're a real writer. No. Thank you so much for hanging in. I know it's late back east. We're trying to do different times, everybody, so just let me know, like, please, just any feedback, how you want to do this and stuff. I want to let everybody know that we're doing one on Sunday morning in LA at 9 to 11. Brunch. So, yep, a little brunch with BlueCat, and that's the next one this Sunday. I don't have a guest yet, but we're going to figure that out, but it might just be me, and but we'll figure something out. But we're going to do it on weekends because people... Maybe, just switching it up and giving people more of an opportunity. Plus, people that are in London and overseas, they'll have a chance to participate on Sunday night. So, but thank you so much, everybody. That was lovely.
Thank you, Gordy.
Yep.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Henry. Congratulations again. We're so proud of you, and you make us look really good, and, we love what you do. You're just awesome. And there's say goodbye to Mike, everybody. Michael be with us on Sunday, and then Michelle, of course, always helping us out with our questions, our lovely BlueCat intern. And she might be here on Sunday, too. We might be able to bribe her with some pancakes or something. Or waffles. You like chicken waffles, don't you?
I do.
Okay, so we might have to bring the waffles in.
Like you like waffles.
But anyways, it'll be a lot of fun Sunday morning. And thank you so much for hanging in tonight. I know the World Series was on. It was tough to watch us tonight. Maybe you big sporting fans. I appreciate you sticking in and giving us a lot of questions. We love doing these things, and we're going to continue to do them. So thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. LA time, 12 o'clock Eastern. And I think it's 5 o'clock in London or 6. But we'll definitely see you this Sunday, and or we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Stop.